without even really noticing until it's much too late exactly what he's doing. So Batiste being the ban for SpaceStation, generally that ends up taking Catherine off the board a little bit as well. But SK, they want this Lance pick. So Lance, Arden, Catherine, Lyra, those are the big captains on Update 2.9. Will continue to be the trend as we go into Update 2.10, but for now, those are the focus for captains.
Also the Grace, we've seen a lot, especially in Europe coming
in Europe especially, we've seen a lot of Grace combined with heroes that can dive well or kite well to protect the carry. So SpaceStation at this point have multiple choices. Arden and Lyra are still very still open, and they're the strongest. I'm actually surprised that SK picked the Lance over the two. It means they want to either protect the carry really well or dive extremely hard. If that's going to be a pedal weapon power, then you're probably going to see them trying to protect her more than try and dive in. SpaceStation, 10 seconds on the clock. They need to decide fast.
Certainly do, and Lyra will be that decision. So getting an extra bit of sustain, a bit of healing, so that when the Joker is going in on that crawl, he has an extra bit of life to work with.
And this last pick will go a long way in not only determining what SpaceStation is going to be trying to do in these fights, but also how SK is going to build this composition. Because if they don't take anything that has big AoE, then all of a sudden this pedal, you likely just run at crystal power. But with a Baron there, now all of a sudden a decision has to be made on SK because they don't really have the hard dive in their composition right now to deal with a Baron.
No, not really, and they don't have too many options to go for that either. I mean, the Blackfoot has already been taken, but we could see the Reza come out. If they go for the Reza, play pedal, weapon power in lane, and then have the Lance, that's a composition that can dive onto the Baron somewhat effectively, but going up against the Cruel, Reza does not do too well in the early game.
And once again, this is Update 2.9 for anyone who might get a little giddy at seeing the Baron there. The crystal buffs have not come through yet. That will be next week. But so it is almost guaranteed to be a weapon Baron up in the lane for SpaceStation.
Now, things like the Alpha are still available, so if they do send that petal to the lane, there are a couple of dive heroes.
Another one that could be very effective is Ozo, but they do go for the Reza. I mentioned it earlier. Makes sense because they played it last week. Tyrus is very well on it, and it works perfectly in terms of you just want to dive very hard. And the Netherlands detonation does not get blocked by the bulwark, so it does well against the Lyra as well. SK Gaming and SpaceStation have good compositions, in my opinion. It's just about execution at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We have two very good compositions, but two very different styles of composition as well. I'm excited to see Hegman on that Lance as well. We've seen Hegman can really perform on that captain pick, but classed on Lyra, the same can be said. So I'm curious to see how this matchup is going to pan out. Who are we expecting to be aggressive in the early game here?
For me, it's going to have to be this Kroll trying to go aggressive to shut down the Reza and prevent Tyrus from getting to his item spikes for as long as possible. Because once this Reza starts to come online, when he dives onto the backline, when he dives onto the Baron, there's not much there to keep a Baron safe from that Reza dive.
Exactly. I mean, SK have very clear power spikes, but they take a while to come online. It's going to be the Aftershock for Reza and the Sora Blade, and then level 8 for Petal in the lane role. So it's the mid game that SK will have to push really hard, and for SpaceStation to delay that mid game to allow the Baron scale before getting pressured too hard, they're gonna have to pressure the early game with the Cruel, like you mentioned, Tasty Bacon. So both of these teams have very clear power spikes that they can abuse. It's different timings for the power spikes, so it's about their understandings and how well they can push those power spikes.
Yeah, understanding what their composition does and how to abuse that, and it only becomes harder when there's this much pressure on the game. Let us know who you are supporting going into this game. Hashtag Vainglory on Twitter. SK Gaming are vying for their spot at Worlds, but they've got to take this quarterfinal first against SpaceStation. Let's pass it back over to Jaws and Sean Ostino to kick this one off.
Thank you very much, Munch. It's me, Jaws, and joined by Sean Ostino. I'm ready to get into this game. SK versus SpaceStation. And what a position for SpaceStation to be in. Not SK, because SpaceStation have the opportunity here to actually upset SK, which has happened over the last coming weeks, Sean. We've seen SK fall to teams we wouldn't necessarily think they'd actually fall to. So this game's going to be very important, and we'll see who can take them. We'll see if SpaceStation can take them to a game 3.
That's very true, Jaws. SpaceStation has been doing really well. Previously known as Salty Potatoes, they've been able to come up, like pull themselves up by their bootstraps, if you will, in the past few weeks of the Vainglory 8. But yeah, right now, SK and G2, who are up at the top of this 2-horse race, they only have 3 points separating them. But if SpaceStation Gaming is able to pretty much upset one of the two titans here, SK, then things could look very different for SK by the end of this weekend, even going into Worlds. They may not make it to Worlds if SpaceStation Gaming has their way with them.
Class just stole that, by the way, with a sigil, so already SpaceStation off to a fairly good start. You'd think 3 members from SK could secure an Elder Treant, but the Lyra way too strong in the early game. Does manage to secure that, no worries. Joker, though, and Class making a rather aggressive roam into SK's jungle. Tyrus might be in a little bit of trouble. Hashi has to troublemaker away. Hegman is going to have to rotate as well. Treant goes over, but this time it's going to go over to Joker. SpaceStation off to a flying start.
Yeah, they're off to a pretty good start. If you actually look, there's just a few hundred gold in their favor here, but they're invading the jungle a lot, and there's a lot of poke going on to Tyrus.
Yeah, they're going very aggressive. Impale does end up missing. Class will use that sigil for the speed boost. Kavalifar did rotate down from the lane as well, and Sneaky is there also. He's level 3. He's going to jump jets forward. Kavalifar taking a lot of damage in the front line, but they should just be able to disengage. A lot of mobility on the side of SK. They're just going to have to give up the rest of their jungle for it.
If you take a look at SpaceStation Gaming, we have a lot of dive potential here, obviously. The Cruel can sit in those bushes and get the the shadows to empower him, and he can actually just dive in with those Dead Man's Rush, get a pretty good barrier out of that as well. And of course the sigils here, when we pop the sigils on this Lyra here, the Class is playing, they're able to get even more of a boost in, and they also have some protective capabilities too. Class can throw down those barriers with the bright bulwarks and prevent a lot of dive from Tyrus coming in, from Hegman with those potential impales, the trampolines as well. So we have a lot of protection on the side of SpaceStation Gaming. What I would expect them to do too later on, since we do have a double weapon power composition here, I would expect Joker on this Cruel to build some of that armor shred. We need him to get a bone saw so that he'll be able to shred that those metal jackets that will potentially be coming out from SK.
Yeah, we've seen that a bit more often as well. Obviously, the classic first item for the Cruel was normally that tension bow, but that bone saw coming online, like you mentioned, is just going to help Sneaky and propel him in the late game. I'm always excited to see a Baron or Sean. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of happy that teams are picking him up again because I think I've had enough of Kestrel Lane. I love the siege. It's cool to see a turret go down early, but I like seeing Baron 2 to 3 hit somebody. I think that's a lot more entertaining. SpaceStation are going to just chase down Tyrus. That's Elder Treant did go over to Tyrus this time around. Kalas with the small rotation as well was just a bit late to help Joker, but Joker is level 5, has a level up on Tyrus also. It's going to start this invade all over again.
Yeah, it looks like they're going in, and Tyrus, it's getting aggressed on.
Wrong place, wrong time. SK just not having a break. Joker is really willing to take them in the early game. Tyrus hasn't even completed his first item, really needs to back as well. There's about 1,200 gold in his back pocket, where Joker has managed to back and has picked up a couple of recipe items as well.
He has. He's building up some more of that gold so he can work towards that bone saw potentially. He does have the necessary items to build it. Tyrus, yeah, he's sitting on 1,500 gold now, so he needs to pick up his Aftershock if he's going to make a bit of a difference here. We know that once Aftershock is on Reza, he's able to make such a big difference, especially because his Firestarter procs, bonus damage coming out of the Troublemaker following. If he has an Aftershock, then he's able to do even more bonus damage and lifesteal as well. So that's going to be a pretty good item spike for him in this game. But in addition, I'd like to see for Hegman at some point in this game. Obviously, we're going to get later in the game when he picks up an Echo, because peeling for his team and doing some either double stuns with the Githian walls or double impales just to root down some of the more mobile members of the side of SpaceStation Gaming, like Sneaky, they're going to be able to really capitalize that and just dive in on Sneaky once he's rooted up.
Joker is level 6 though. Speaking about rooting people up, a big old stun will certainly end the life of Kavalifar or Tyrus if they're not careful, especially as Tyrus is a little bit more behind than he is on Joker right now. He's just hit that level 6, so is keeping up the level lead at least. Keeping up the level at least. Class is going to get jumped on here. Impel does land. Bright Ball Wipe, but Githian Wall is going to come out, forcing the flask usage. Kavalifar doing a fair bit of damage early on. Picked up that Sorrow Blade, but Sneaky has got a Sorrow Blade plus a 6 sins in his inventory, so inching ahead in that regard. Joker may be looking for a little something here. He's just going to plant himself in the bush like every crawl does. He's going to walk up as well. He's going to get spotted, so SK now know they need to play fairly safe. But Tyrus, he's got his first item online, and that is going to be the Aftershock. So we'll see if SK will actually want to do anything with that.
Yeah, we'll see if they want to do anything. The Aftershock, that's going to be really good, just like what we were talking about earlier. He hasn't capitalized on it quite yet, and the longer we get into the game, you know, the longer that, the less that item power spike is going to make a bit of a difference. But I would expect him, it looks like he is building a crystal bit there. He could be going into any number of things, as we know with the new items that we have here. He could be, I would expect him, I would like to see him going into a Broken Myth to get some shield pierce later on. But we'll be seeing what he's going to be building into. Look, we have actually a fountain on class right now. So that we've been seeing a lot of Lyras actually go Crucible or Fountain when it comes to their first item build. But it looks like class is going for the more sustain, the burst sustain with that fountain, and Tyrus goes in.
Yeah, SK really want to make something happen, but Sneaky is notoriously hard to gank on this Baron. With the jump jets, he can easily get out of there, and Class obviously has the Bright Bulwark as well. So SpaceStation, they do have a lot of tools to disengage this Baron, or engage. In fact, Joker may be looking for a little something, and although a Bright Bulwark will instantly get used again, I want to know what's going to happen when Class hits level 6 here, because SpaceStation, speaking of that level 6, he just hit it, he's got that passageway available to him now as well, so he can transport Sneaky straight into a Bright Bulwark, and he's going to be on top of Cavalifar and Tyrus, which is kind of where Tyrus wants to be. But if Sneaky gets strong enough with that tension bow pickup as well now, Tyrus is going to need to stack armor pretty early on to avoid taking the majority of that damage, or at least the initial brunt force. Joker, obviously, like you said, has picked up that Bone Saw as well now, so he's hit a nice little power spike for him, shredding that armor in the front line like you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's an interesting interaction when you do have a comp that kind of wants to dive and kind of wants to protect the carry as well. We have the Joker wanting to get in there and provide a distraction and peel, and oh, it looks like they're going in.
Ooh, Impale does end up landing. Bright Bulwark stopping him for the time being, but a massive rocket actually comes through for Sneaky. Hits Tyrus and Cavalifar, forcing them to both pop Flask. They're going to have to back off rather sharpish. And in fact, Tyrus is going to have to get that fountain used on him as well. Sneaky just dodging in and out of these Impales. They're completely unharmed. Cavalifar not so much, though. SK, they're going to go down, and that'll be first blood to SpaceStation. Now Tyrus trying to get on the back with a Netherform detonation, but Class will pick up that kill as well, and they're going to be able to secure the first turret.
8 minutes 40 seconds in, and Sneaky is just doing so much work here on this Baron. He's only got 2 items, but we know how detrimental this is going to be now for SK. The Sorrow Blade and Tension Bow mix. Tension Bow has fallen off. It's gotten a little bit of a nerf, and with the changes to life, we've actually had the base health is actually so much larger, so it doesn't have quite the impact it does, but they're going in for more.
They want to go in for another engagement. Hegman is already pretty low, but now they spotted Cavalifar. He's completely left on his own, trampolined away, but Tyrus is on the back line, exactly where he needs to be. Sneaky ends up falling. Nice Scythian wall onto Joker, but he's not done quite yet. Eggman extremely low. Tyrus trying to just disrupt him. He ends up taking him down in the end. SK, they do reclaim 2 for 0, and they're going to be able to secure Gold Miner.
Oh no. Well, this for SpaceStation Gaming, that last fight was just a disaster, and they weren't able to capitalize and do that much from the previous team fight that they won up in the lane. Class is getting hunted down by Tyrus, but it looks like he's just going to back off. But SK coming back with full force. They rotated down into the jungle, and they separated SpaceStation Gaming. So Joker was diving in, Sneaky was all by himself, and he got hunted down by Tyrus. Tyrus, you leave him alone. He's going to be able to do so much work. He does have that broken myth now, and he's prioritizing some armor as well. They really want to protect themselves against the burst damage that's coming out of this Baron. And Baron is already working towards some Tyrant's Monocle. It looks like he's going to be able to get that crit damage down too. I would hope that later on he works on Tornado Trigger so he can get that damage per second up, as well as some additional crit. But yeah, things still could go either way in this game, Jaws.
Definitely so. With Cavalifar picking up that Tornado Trigger, he's going to be a bit more of a nuisance. Oh my goodness. He is going towards that Monocle build. You can imagine that's going to be next on his list after that initial bit of damage coming out from Sorrow Blade and the Tension Bow. I don't know, Tornado Trigger. I like double monocle because you're more than likely going to one-shot somebody, but hey-ho. SK now, obviously, they have lost a turret, and this is an extremely important game, and the desk did touch on it as well. I'll speak about that in a second, as SpaceStation are just trying to take this Century. They do end up defeating it, and that'll be just SK losing one of their defensive lines, or at least there's only got 2 more lives left. They've got lane priority now as well. They are going to be able to push this in more often than not and look for picks with that Cruel Ultimate.
Yeah, the Cruel Ultimate is what is going to be a lot of the dive that needs. Once that initiates, that is where SpaceStation Gaming really needs to engage on their target. And if they're able to lock down Cavalifar or Tyrez, namely Cavalifar here though, because he is a pretty big damage threat. And he's the more consistent damage threat. Once you lock him down and take him out, then a lot of these auto attacks are going to be shut down. And Hegman goes.
Oh, 2-man impale. That was good. Gifty and Wall as well, but Tyrus is trying to get onto Sneaky. Already healed up with the fountain there. The form detonation onto 2 people. Sneaky still trying to kite back. Does use those jump jets. Cavalifar follows up the trampoline and takes him out. Joker is still trying to kill Tyrus. Class is fairly high HP as well. Tyrus out of the fight for the moment, and Joker now just taking the brunt force of Cavalifar's build, just kiting and kiting and kiting and kiting away, and ends up just cutting him down a passageway, trying to kill Tyrus, trying to kill him just to at least secure 1 kill. But SK, they're going to be able to find the ace and push down the lane as well.
SK finding the plays here, and that's exactly what they need to do. One of their win conditions here is they've got to keep Cavalifar alive, and we saw earlier in the game, this turret is going down actually. Tier 1 turret's down for SK doing some work here. Cavalifar, as long as he stays alive, he's able to output so much damage on this weapon power pedal. He just kites around the fights, and you saw there that Joker was backing off and trying to get some distance between himself and Cavalifar, but just because Cavalifar did not give up and just kept kiting, moving around the fight, he was able to burst him down so much. And if you look at it, it's 2-1 right now for Cavalifar, and it's 5-2 right now for SK. It's not that high of a scoring game right now, but still a lot of work being done.
SK want to go for another engage. Cavalifar just pounding the front line, like you said. Joker taking the brunt of that. Tyrus hiding in the bush, actually. Netherform detonation on the back. Sneaky is going to use those jump jets. Takes a large chunk out of Tyrus, but he's still kiting forwards. Triple impale. Giphy and Wall as well available. Sneaky has to use that rocket jump yet again, and Tyrus is just still sticking to him like glue, uncontested on the back line. Giphy and Wall onto Joker, and now is a 3v2. Cavalifar left completely unmanned. That passageway is going to lead him to safety for the time being, but Class didn't last long at all, and that'll be SK finding another 2 kills.
Hegman taking the defensive passage there to actually hunt down Class was really well done. That's the thing with Hegman. They're actually capitalizing it actually really well right now, taking advantage of this gold miner here. But Hegman, as a Lance, he actually has quite a bit of damage himself. And with his Parsons technique, even though he's got slow attack speed, he's able to just reach so far with that Lance of his and able to poke from distance. Really well done by him. Look at him. He's sitting at 2-0-5 right now. And Tyrez, 3-1-4. Just so much assist and really good sharing of these team fights between the members of SK. We have a double tornado trigger on Cavalifar right now. The attack speed and the crit damage is just ridiculous coming out of him at the moment, Jaws.
Tyrez was the man to watch, Sean Ostino. And this is exactly why. You know he's going to be able to show up in clutch situations and clutch matches like this. They did lose that first tier turret, but now coming back with a 2-7 score lead with a 4,000 gold lead to boot as well. They were able to secure 2 gold miners in this game, while SpaceStation, even though they look to have the massive early advantage, even first blood onto Sneaky, aren't able to make anything just happen yet. However, Sneaky is building and building and building up, and when he hits those 4 items, he is going to be one terrifying Baron. And they may have looked, or at least tried to find another engage. Impale does go a little bit wide. SpaceStation have found Tyrus off on his own, but like I mentioned earlier on, Sean, is the fact that SK have so much mobility, especially since Hegman is level 6 as well. He can just combat roll, he can barrel roll out of any situation, even barrel roll into situations like this. There's going to be a big bright bulwark going to stop him for the time being. There comes the Ion Cam, but it's not going to matter. Tyrus already on the back line. Sneaky is just getting chased out, just separating himself from the rest of the team. Defensive passageway used. They finally killed Tyrus, but are they going to be able to do anything else? No, they are not. That trampoline from Cavalifar was good, and it ends ends up killing Sneaky, and now he's just trying to fight the Treant, or at least Kalos is trying to fight the Treant for some reason. EU Treant came up strong, and that'll be SpaceStation taking 2 kills at the price of 1, and the Kraken is on the board, and oh boy, Joker wants to do it.
He wants to do it. And Cruel is not necessarily the fastest at taking objectives here. We do have Eggman wanting to contest a little bit and distract. But Cavalifar and Tyrus diving in after Sneaky. Sneaky just separated himself so much. And that's the thing he's been doing. He's been backing up a lot with those jump jets. However, when he separates himself that much from the team, not only is he, allowing himself to try to kite, to try to do more damage, to distract the members of SK, but he's also separating himself from Clast, who's able to sustain and heal him up. And that's why I feel like Sneaky's been going down so many times. And there goes a Kraken. Oh, stolen by SK. Oh my goodness, this is craziness, Jaws.
Pose just came in and just whacked it once. SpaceStation did the work for him. He dashed in with his troublemaker, says thank you very much, and now Sneaky, Clast, and Joker are going to have to go on the defensive here. They use the War Treads to get out of the fight for the time being, but SK, they know it's an important one. In fact, From Hell's Heart does land on Eggman. They're going to try and go on him, taking him extremely low, but they still need to deal with that Kraken, so that's not going to matter for the time being. Pushing forward, Impale lands on 3, the Crucible a little bit too late, and Tyrus with the massive 3-man Nether form. It hits all members of SpaceStation. They just drop like flies. Class trying to run for his life as that Kraken is still marching on the base.
It's a beautiful thing, Jaws, when you know how to play Reza so well that you're able to position on the back end of the fight, getting to the back line and not having to go through anybody else. That's what the Nether Form Detonator can do. And SK is just going to continue to press into the base. This could very well be it for them.
Sneaky, Joker, they're up. Tyrus, Netherform detonation straight on the back line, but he's trying to kill that crystal. It's going to go down way too quickly for SpaceStation to deal with, and SK will find themselves the first win of this week, and they'll go up match point versus SpaceStation.
What a beautiful thing it was, Jaws. Sneaky, however, wasn't able to do the work that he needed to. They needed to protect the carry here on the side of SpaceStation Gaming. But Cavalifar, 5-3 right now on this pedal, just doing so much work, not to mention Tyrez, being able to just dive so deep and continue to chase the carries. Eggman, 2-0-8 here on this Lance. My man doing the work that a captain does.
That was over before the 20-minute mark hit as well. Off